At a bustling Costco gas station, a group of rowdy bikers decides to target a woman who looks too unassuming to fight back. What begins as an attempt to harass her for a laugh takes a shocking turn when the woman reveals she's no ordinary victim. With a mysterious past and skills the bikers couldn't have anticipated, she teaches them a lesson that will leave them questioning everything they thought they knew about strength and intimidation. The roaring engines of motorcycles shattered the calm at the Costco gas station. A group of bikers, clad in leather jackets with matching patches, pulled into the crowded lot, their laughter and crude jokes drawing uneasy glances from other customers. The gang thrived on the attention, enjoying the way their presence disrupted the mundane task of refueling. At one of the pumps, an unassuming woman was filling her car. Her hair was tied back neatly, and she wore a casual outfit that suggested she was on her way to run errands. Her demeanor was calm, almost detached, as if she hadn't noticed the bikers' arrival. But they noticed her. "Look at that one," said a burly man with a thick beard and a toothpick dangling from his lips. "Bet she wouldn't know what to do if someone revved an engine at her." Another biker chuckled. "Bet she'd jump out of her skin." The leader, a towering figure nicknamed Blade, grinned. "Let's find out." They revved their engines in unison, the sound echoing across the lot. The woman didn't flinch. She finished pumping her gas and began cleaning her windshield, her movements methodical and unhurried. "Not even a glance," Blade muttered, his grin fading slightly. "Let's see how far we can push her." The gang rolled their bikes closer, effectively blocking her car in place. Blade stepped off his motorcycle and leaned against her hood. "Hey, lady," he called out. "Think you're better than us?" The woman finally looked up, her eyes meeting his. They were calm but piercing, as though she could see straight through him. "Excuse me," she said simply. "You're in my way." The bikers laughed, but there was an edge to it now. Blade leaned in closer. "What if I don't move? What are you gonna do about it?" The woman held his gaze unflinching. "You don't want to find out." The tension in the air thickened as Blade smirked, his ego fueled by the laughter of his crew. He tapped the hood of the woman's car with his knuckles, his grin widening. "You've got a smart mouth for someone in a tough spot," he said. The woman didn't reply. Instead, she stepped around him and began cleaning the other side of her windshield. Her calm demeanor only seemed to aggravate the bikers. Another one of them, a wiry man with a scar running down his cheek, chimed in. "Hey, don't ignore the boss. That's disrespectful." Blade nodded, crossing his arms. "Yeah, we don't take kindly to disrespect." The woman replaced the squeegee and calmly adjusted her side mirror, still showing no reaction to their taunts. "I'm not interested in your games," she said. "Move your bikes so I can leave." Blade laughed, his voice carrying across the gas station. "Or what? You gonna call for backup?" The bikers roared with laughter, but the woman's steady gaze silenced them. "I'm giving you one last chance to step aside," she said, her voice cool and firm. A bystander nearby, who had been nervously recording the exchange on his phone, muttered, "I don't think they know who they're messing with." Scarcheek sneered and kicked the woman's tire. "Let's see how tough you really are," he said, reaching for her arm. Before anyone could blink, the woman's hand shot out, gripping his wrist with surprising force. She twisted it expertly, forcing him to his knees with a yelp of pain. The gas station fell silent, the sound of Scarcheek's groan echoing in the stillness. Blade's smirk disappeared as he took a step forward. "Let him go," he growled. The woman released the biker, who cradled his wrist and scrambled back toward his crew. Her calm expression never wavered as she locked eyes with Blade. "I warned you," she said simply. Blade's grin twisted into a scowl as he stepped closer to the woman. Around him, the other bikers exchanged uncertain glances, the ease with which she had overpowered Scarcheek unsettling even the most confident among them. "You've got guts," Blade said, his voice low and threatening. "But guts don't mean much when you're outnumbered." The woman tilted her head slightly, her calm gaze never leaving his. It's not about numbers. It's about knowing when to walk away. Her words hung in the air, drawing murmurs from the bystanders who had begun gathering around. Several people had their phones out, recording the confrontation, sensing that this was no ordinary gas station scuffle. One of the bikers, a younger man with nervous eyes, whispered to Blade, "Maybe we should just leave it, boss. She's not what she seems." "Shut up," Blade snapped, his ego unwilling to let him back down. He turned his glare back to the woman. "Last chance, lady. Apologize for disrespecting us or things are gonna get messy." The woman remained still, her posture relaxed but ready. "You've already made things messy," she said. Blade lunged forward, his hand reaching for her shoulder, but she moved with lightning speed. In one fluid motion, she sidestepped, grabbed his outstretched arm, and flipped him over her hip. Blade hit the ground hard, a loud thud echoing through the station. The crowd gasped, and the bikers froze in disbelief. Blade groaned, struggling to catch his breath as the woman stepped back, giving him space to get up. The younger biker muttered under his breath, "I told you." Blade staggered to his feet, his face red with humiliation. "You're gonna regret that," he hissed, reaching for a chain hanging from his belt. The woman didn't flinch. Her calm gaze swept over the bikers, as though assessing the next move in a chess match. The onlookers watched in stunned silence, their phones capturing every second of the unexpected showdown. "You've had your warning," the woman said, her voice steady. "Leave now, or you'll learn the hard way that I'm not someone to mess with." The tension at the Costco gas station had reached its breaking point. Blade stood, chain in hand, glaring at the woman who had just humiliated him in front of his crew. Around them, the crowd grew larger, drawn by the unfolding spectacle. Cars in line for gas idled as their drivers pulled out phones, recording every second of the escalating drama. The bikers huddled together, trying to regroup. Scarcheek nursed his wrist while muttering, "She's not normal, boss. That throw, who even knows how to do that?" Blade's face twisted with fury, his pride wounded. "I don't care what she knows. Nobody shows me up like that," he growled. He turned to his crew, motioning for two of them to flank her. "Surround her. Let's see how she handles being outnumbered." The woman didn't move, her calm, almost casual demeanor unnerving even the boldest of the bikers. Her eyes flicked to the bystanders, scanning for anyone who might step in or call the police, but most seemed content to watch, captivated by the David and Goliath dynamic playing out before them. One of the bikers stepped closer, pulling a tire iron from his saddlebag. He grinned, trying to intimidate her. "You should have just pumped your gas and left, lady. Now we gotta teach you a lesson." The woman finally spoke, her voice low and measured. "You should put that down before you regret it." The biker laughed, twirling the tire iron like a baton. "And who's gonna make me? You?" In an instant, the woman lunged forward. Her movements were so fast and fluid that the crowd collectively gasped. She grabbed the tire iron mid-swing, twisting it out of his hands and tossing it aside. Before he could react, she delivered a precise kick to his knee, sending him sprawling to the ground. The crowd erupted in gasps and murmurs. Some cheered, while others exchanged stunned glances. A trucker near the edge of the lot muttered, "That's some military-grade stuff right there." Blade's grip on his chain tightened, and his crew began to hesitate, their bravado slipping. The woman turned her gaze back to Blade, her stance steady. "This is your last chance to walk away," she said, her voice calm but commanding. Blade sneered, but the uncertainty in his eyes betrayed him. The crowd sensed it too, the murmurs growing louder as they waited to see if he would take the warning or escalate further. Blade hesitated, his grip tightening around the chain in his hand as he weighed his next move. Around him, the crowd continued to grow, their phones capturing every moment. Whispers spread like wildfire as spectators speculated about the woman's uncanny skills. "She's not just some random lady," a man in a baseball cap said to his friend. "Nobody moves like that unless they've had serious training." A trucker leaning against his rig nodded in agreement. She's gotta be ex-military or something. That kick? Perfect form. One of the bikers, a lanky young man with a nervous expression, began to fidget. "Boss," he said, his voice low, "maybe we should back off. This isn't worth it." Blade glared at him, his pride too wounded to consider retreat. "Shut up," he snapped. "She's just a lucky shot. We'll show her who's in charge." The woman watched the exchange, her expression unreadable. Despite the chaos, her breathing remained steady, her posture relaxed, yet prepared. "You're making a mistake," she said, addressing Blade directly. "You think this is about winning or losing, but it's not. Walk away while you still can." Her words only seemed to enrage Blade further. "You think you're better than us?" he snarled, swinging the chain in a wide arc. Before he could strike, a voice from the crowd interrupted. "I know who she is." All eyes turned to an older man standing near the gas station's convenience store. His weathered face and oil-stained overalls marked him as a regular. "I've seen her before," he said, pointing. "She's the one they call the Ghost. Used to be Special Forces or some top-secret government team. My buddy told me about her after she took down a gang in another state. Said she disappears as fast as she shows up." The bikers exchanged uneasy glances, the rumor sending a ripple of doubt through their ranks. The younger biker's face paled. "The Ghost?" he muttered. "You mean the one they said could neutralize a room full of threats in seconds?" Blade scoffed, but there was a flicker of hesitation in his eyes. "Stories," he said, his voice wavering slightly. "That's all they are. Stories." The woman didn't confirm or deny the man's claim. Instead, she stepped forward, her gaze locked on Blade. "You wanted to see who I am," she said. "Now you know. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" The crowd held its breath, the tension so thick it was almost tangible. Blade's ego battled with his growing fear, the decision resting entirely in his hands. Blade's fingers tightened around the chain, his face contorted with a mixture of anger and fear. The murmurs from the crowd grew louder, their whispers feeding his wounded pride. He couldn't back down, not in front of his crew, the onlookers, or the cameras that were undoubtedly recording every second. "Ghost or not," Blade growled, "you're just one woman. Let's see how tough you are when it's all of us against you." He motioned for his crew to move in, their hesitation overshadowed by loyalty to their leader. Two bikers advanced, one holding a wrench and the other raising his fists. The woman remained calm, her eyes tracking their movements with practiced precision. She didn't wait for them to make the first move. Instead, she stepped forward, closing the gap with startling speed. The first biker swung his wrench, but she sidestepped effortlessly, grabbing his arm and twisting it behind his back. With a sharp shove, she sent him stumbling into the second biker, who barely managed to stay upright. The crowd erupted into cheers and gasps as the woman turned her attention to the second man. He threw a wild punch, but she ducked, delivering a swift elbow to his midsection. The force knocked the wind out of him, and he crumpled to the ground, gasping for air. Another biker charged, this one wielding a chain similar to Blade's. The woman caught the chain mid-swing, using it to pull him off balance. With a calculated kick to his shin, she sent him toppling to the pavement. "Who is this woman?" someone in the crowd shouted, their phone capturing every flawless maneuver. The remaining bikers hesitated, their bravado melting into uncertainty. Even Blade, who had been so confident moments ago, now seemed unsure. "You've trained for strength," the woman said, her voice carrying across the lot. "But I've trained for precision. Strength without control is useless." Blade's jaw tightened as he stepped forward, spinning his chain threateningly. "Big talk," he spat. "Let's see if you can back it up against me." The woman's expression didn't waver. She motioned for him to come closer. "Your move," she said simply. Blade charged, swinging the chain in a wide arc. She waited until the last second before ducking under it, stepping to the side and grabbing his wrist. Using his momentum against him, she flipped him onto the pavement, the chain slipping from his hand as he hit the ground with a groan. The crowd erupted into applause and cheers, their excitement at a fever pitch. Blade lay on the ground, dazed and humiliated, as the woman calmly stepped back. "Enough," she said, her tone commanding. "This ends now. Walk away while you still can." The bikers looked at their fallen leader, then at the woman. For the first time that night, the reality of the situation began to sink in. Blade groaned as he pushed himself to his knees, his pride in tatters, and his body aching from the impact. His crew hesitated, exchanging uneasy glances, unsure whether to retreat or stand by their leader. The crowd, emboldened by the woman's dominance, cheered her on, their phones capturing every angle of the unfolding drama. Blade's eyes burned with fury as he staggered to his feet. "You think you've won?" he spat, wiping a trickle of blood from the corner of his mouth. "You're just a fluke. Let's see how you do when I stop holding back." The woman's calm gaze didn't waver. "You're out of moves, Blade. Walk away while you still have some dignity left." Her words hit him harder than any physical blow. He clenched his fists, his jaw tightening as he reached for the chain that had fallen from his hand. With a roar of frustration, he lunged at her, swinging the chain with all his strength. The crowd gasped, the tension in the air reaching its peak. But the woman remained unshaken. She sidestepped the attack with ease, her movements fluid and controlled. As Blade overextended, she grabbed his arm, twisting it sharply and forcing him to drop the chain once more. In one seamless motion, she swept his legs out from under him, sending him crashing to the ground for the second time. This time she planted a foot firmly on his chest, pinning him in place. "Enough," she said, her voice steady but firm. "This isn't about strength or proving a point. It's about knowing when to stop." Blade squirmed beneath her, his face red with humiliation as the crowd erupted into cheers and applause. The other bikers took a step back, their confidence shattered. One of them muttered, "We're done, man. She's got us beat." The younger biker, who had voiced doubts earlier, stepped forward hesitantly. "She's right, Blade," he said quietly. "This isn't worth it. Let's just leave." Blade glared at him, then at the woman standing over him. For a moment it seemed as though he might make one final attempt to fight, but as the weight of the situation and the crowd's jeers settled on him, he let out a defeated sigh. "Fine," he muttered. "We're leaving." The woman stepped back, allowing him to stand. Blade motioned for his crew to follow, his shoulders slumped in defeat. The bikers shuffled toward their motorcycles, avoiding the gaze of the onlookers. As they mounted their bikes, Blade turned back to the woman one last time. "This isn't over," he said, though his voice lacked the conviction it once held. The woman tilted her head slightly, her expression unreadable. "It is for tonight," she replied. The sound of engines roared to life as the bikers sped away, their humiliation trailing behind them. The crowd erupted into cheers, some calling out to the woman in admiration. She gave a small nod of acknowledgement before turning back to her car, ready to finish what she had started. As the dust settled and the sound of the bikers' engines faded into the night, the crowd at the Costco gas station erupted into applause. People were still buzzing about the woman's incredible display of skill, their voices overlapping with excitement and disbelief. "Did you see how fast she moved?" someone exclaimed. "That was like something out of a movie." The woman, now calmly placing the gas nozzle back into its holder, didn't acknowledge the crowd's praise. She seemed focused on finishing her task, as if the confrontation had been nothing more than a minor inconvenience. But the sound of approaching sirens broke through the chatter, turning heads as 2 police cruisers pulled into the lot. The officers stepped out, scanning the scene with practiced precision. One of them, a stocky man with a sharp gaze, approached the gathering crowd. "We got a call about a disturbance," he said. "What happened here?" The bystanders erupted into a chorus of explanations, their phones held high as they showed off recordings of the altercation. "She took down an entire biker gang," one man shouted, his voice brimming with admiration. The officer's brow furrowed as he turned to the woman. "Ma'am, can you explain what's going on?" She straightened, her posture relaxed but confident. "A group of bikers decided to block my car and escalate things. I defended myself when they wouldn't back down," she said plainly. The second officer, a younger man who had been studying the video clips on a bystander's phone, raised an eyebrow. "Defended yourself?" he asked, incredulous. "You handled them like you've had years of training." The older officer's eyes narrowed slightly as he studied her face. Recognition flickered across his features. "Wait a second," he said. "Are you... the ghost?" The crowd fell silent, the name sparking a wave of murmurs. The woman didn't confirm or deny the title. Instead, she gave a small nod. "That's what some people call me," she said, her tone indifferent. The officer straightened and gave a respectful nod. "I've heard stories about you. Special forces, right? You're a legend in certain circles." The woman sighed softly, her eyes briefly meeting his. "I'm just someone who knows how to handle herself," she said. The officers exchanged glances before the older one turned to the crowd. "If anyone has evidence of what happened here, we'll need it for the report." Phones were thrust toward him as multiple people offered their videos. The younger officer took the footage, shaking his head in disbelief as he watched her take down the bikers with precision. "This might be the cleanest self-defense case I've ever seen," he muttered. Turning back to the woman, the older officer said, "You're free to go, ma'am, and for what it's worth, that was impressive." The woman nodded and returned to her car. As she pulled out of the lot, the crowd watched her go, still buzzing with excitement. The Costco gas station was abuzz long after the woman had driven away. Her calm demeanor and flawless execution of self-defense had left a lasting impression, not just on the crowd, but on the bikers themselves. The leader, Blade, sat on his parked motorcycle a few blocks away, his face a storm of humiliation and rage. His crew lingered nearby, their usual bravado replaced by uneasy silence. "She didn't even break a sweat," Scarcheek muttered, still nursing his wrist. "She took us all out like we were nothing." Blade glared at him. "She caught us off guard, that's all," he snapped. But the doubt in his voice betrayed him. The younger biker, who had been hesitant from the start, finally spoke up. "She gave us a chance to leave," he said quietly. "More than once. We didn't take it. That's on us." Blade turned on him, his voice sharp. "You siding with her now?" "I'm just saying," the younger biker replied, standing his ground. "We've been acting like we're untouchable, but tonight showed us we're not. She didn't have to let us walk away, but she did. Maybe we should think about why." The words hung in the air, and for a moment, none of them spoke. The reality of their actions and the consequences they narrowly avoided began to sink in. At that moment, a car slowed down as it passed them. The driver, a middle-aged man in a trucker hat, leaned out the window. "Guess you boys aren't as tough as you thought," he called out, laughing. "The whole town's gonna know you got your butts handed to you by one woman." The bikers shifted uncomfortably as the truck drove off. Blade clenched his fists, but even he couldn't deny the truth of the man's words. Their humiliation was likely already going viral, thanks to the dozens of phones recording their defeat. "She said something back there," the younger biker continued, his tone reflective. "Strength without control is useless. Maybe she's right. Maybe we've been going about this all wrong." Blade scoffed but didn't respond. Deep down, a part of him knew the younger biker had a point. Their reputation, their camaraderie, it all meant nothing if it was built on intimidation and brute force. As the group dispersed, their egos bruised and their confidence shaken, one thing was clear: tonight had changed them. Whether they chose to learn from it or not was up to each of them. The viral videos of the Costco gas station incident spread like wildfire. Social media was ablaze with clips of the woman single-handedly disarming and neutralizing the biker gang. Headlines called her the Ghost of Costco and the Mystery Martial Artist. Comments ranged from awe to curiosity, with many speculating about her past. "She's like a real-life action hero," one user posted. "Somebody give her a movie deal," another quipped. Meanwhile, the woman carried on with her life as though nothing had happened. She had no interest in the fame or the questions surrounding her identity. For her, what she had done was simple, a reminder that bullies thrive only when people allow them to. The bikers, however, were grappling with the aftermath of their public humiliation. Blade, once the untouchable leader of his gang, now found himself the subject of ridicule. Everywhere he went, people recognized him from the videos. "Hey, Blade," a gas station clerk said, smirking as Blade paid for his coffee. "Need a hand with that? Or should I call the ghost to help you?" His crew fared no better. Scar-Cheek avoided crowded places, embarrassed by his visible injury. The younger biker, on the other hand, seemed to embrace the lesson he'd learned. He started attending martial arts classes at a local gym, hoping to channel his energy in a more constructive way. "You'll never win a fight unless you respect the person you're up against," his instructor said during a session. The words echoed the woman's warning at the gas station, and he nodded silently, determined to change. Back online, the videos sparked debates about strength and respect. Commentators pointed out how the woman's calm demeanor had unnerved the bikers more than any amount of yelling or aggression could have. "She didn't just beat them physically," one popular post read. "She beat their entire mindset. That's what true strength looks like." For Blade and his crew, the incident served as a humbling reminder of their limitations. While some of them doubled down on their bravado, others began to reflect on the choices that had led them there. The woman, meanwhile, drove through another quiet town, stopping at a different gas station. As she filled her car, she noticed a group of teenagers laughing and joking near the pumps. When one of them bumped into an elderly man, the group quickly apologized and helped him pick up his dropped items. She smiled faintly, the smallest glimmer of hope that her actions might have sent ripples further than she could see. As she drove off, the world around her moved on, but those who had witnessed her strength and grace wouldn't forget. She didn't need to be famous or celebrated. For her, the lesson had been taught, and that was enough.